everybody. Jeremy Beaver, CEO and founder of Listen Vision, and you are tuned in for another incredible edition of Mural Mondays with our guest, our artist in residency for today, Rashada Pullen Jira. Did I say that all correctly?
Yes, you did. You said it
Oh,
correctly.
I'm the man. I'm so happy. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you from?
I'm from Richmond, Virginia, but I've lived in the D.C. area for nearly 10 years now.
Nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
And in your time, in the 10 years that you've been here, what have you discovered about Washington, D.C. that's maybe different from Richmond, Virginia?
There are a lot of differences. Let me try to think of what would be the best one to share. One of the things I love the most about D.C. is that in order to make it here, everyone seems to have, I don't want to necessarily call it a side hustle, but they have their main job and then the thing that they also do. It's not necessarily a side hustle, but it's more or less almost every educator I know is also an artist.
Yeah.
And every artist I know is also an educator.
Yeah.
So.
All of my friends fall into that mold.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that were, let's say, are DJs, that I was growing up with and going to college, and now they're educating folks on DJing and how to DJ. How did you get into art?
Actually, I have a very, very normal, boring story. Kindergarten through 12th grade, I just took art classes, and my junior and senior year of high school, I had an amazing art teacher who just kind of, I guess, based on the level that I was at, or just her means of teaching, it just worked well for me. And she let her expectations known, but she left a lot of things open-ended, and she exposed us to a lot of different artists and just the possibilities of a variety of careers. And
Did you have the same art teacher all those years?
No. I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and when I was in my junior and senior year of high school, I had this one art teacher, and she was amazing.
And now, was there anything that made you or influenced you to actually pursue art as a career path?
Honestly, initially, it once again sounds kind of boring, but when I was 17, I was just kind of enjoying a project that she'd given us, and I was thinking, okay, I think I might actually want to do this. And so at the time, I was in college not in college, but in high school, a very long time ago. I don't want to give away the year, but I'll just say that the internet was just barely being used by the common public. And so we're looking through college catalogs of art schools, and just seeing the variety of different career paths I possibly could choose got me excited. And so here I am.
Here you are. And so, let's if you don't mind grabbing that piece for me, we're going to just talk about this piece in particular, because this piece speaks to me, and I think that it's reflective of your style. What is the name of this piece right here?
This piece is actually called Bootsy. At the time when I was painting the painting, I had just seen a documentary on Bootsy Collins, and my husband and I have an inside joke about one of his songs. My husband likes to change the lyrics to a lot of songs, and I just changed it up in a way he didn't like it. But it's I'd rather be with you, ooh, yeah, that song. And Bootsy Collins, for those of you that don't know, Bootsy Collins is famous for having these sunglasses that are shaped like stars. So
something tells me that a producer named Dr. Dre also changed the lyrics of that song just a little bit too.
Yeah.
So is this done from a picture? Is this done from your head? I mean, why is there, when I look at this, there is so much vibrancy in this. I feel like I can literally reach out and touch her afro. I mean, it's like coming off the painting here. How did you get such depth of color? And those were 10 different questions all at once.
Well, a lot of my paintings are based off of a variety of models. I get a lot of my influence from the students that I teach and their families. I don't recall who was my initial influence for this particular painting. But as far as getting all the colors together, I've been experimenting with ways of getting very, very dark brown because the darkest brown that I'm aware of that I can purchase in the store of paint is burnt umber. Burnt umber, as rich and as dark as it is, it doesn't always communicate the depth of how dark black people can be. So I discovered by mixing various shades of purple, I can get a variety of darker browns. And
so this is not an actual woman. This was done from your head.
Well, no, this is based vaguely off of somebody.
Right. But there wasn't a human being sitting in front of you, is what I'm saying.
No. And so there, in her hair, I used like 2 or 3 different purples and some pinks and some white and a little bit of blue along with the black. I've been playing around with different color in hair, just having some fun, trying to find ways of exploring some whimsical aspects in my art. So.
And I'm sorry, what was the name of this painting again?
Bootsy.
I love this. I love that it's fun and yet at the same time intellectual, because when I look at this woman, I feel a sense of confidence and strength. Do you feel that?
That was my intention.
She got a little attitude going on.
I wanted to kind of express just being a little cocky and bold. A lot of people, if you get me to talk about myself a whole lot, eventually you'll find out that I'm a little audacious. I try to tone it down a bit, but
is there a little of you in this?
A little bit.
Okay.
a little bit. In my mind, I imagine myself to be much bigger than I physically appear. So.
Wait, you mean you're not 6'8" in real life? Okay, that's
no.
okay. You put that back. I'm gonna grab a different piece, because all over the room today. Where is this? I just saw this earring piece. I love this so much. Oh my goodness. There's so many different things about this that I love. First and foremost, what's the title of this piece?
This one actually has no title yet.
This one has no title. Now, I'm going to ask a question that I formulated earlier, because there's something that I recognize. I feel I recognize. What is this? You hold it. What is these designs up in here? Is this from the subway system in the metro system?
No, it's actually it was originally an umbrella, and I just wanted to kind of run with the shapes that are formed by the bridging and the webbing in the umbrella, and just ran off with that.
And then there seems to be, it feels like an African pattern in the purple, in the bottom right.
Yes.
Is there a particular African influence, or is it just kind of feel that way to me?
It probably just feels that way to you. I just made it up as I went.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking directly at a pattern. Every now and then, a lot of my paintings I paint live. I'm a live painter. And this painting I created live, and I'd gotten to a point in the night where I had to keep going, but I was starting to get tired. But I wanted to finish, and I wanted to add more, so I just started adding patterns to it, and it came out this way.
Wow. And I don't know if we can get a zoom in on this, but I feel like if you look at the coloring around this woman's neck, her neckline here, it really illustrates what you were talking about with the different shades and hues of brown. People of color come in so many different shades and hues. I suspect it's incredibly difficult to get a really realistic, skin tone. What is this woman thinking?
She's just more or less waiting. She's kind of annoyed. She's in between being peaceful and annoyed, and trying to decide that she's not going to let whatever's bothering her bother her, but she hasn't quite gotten there yet.
And I'll go through some more paintings here, and you guys will notice there's a commonality in the facial expressions of all of your subjects. They all convey so much feeling through their face, through their expression. I don't see, out of all of your paintings, there's not one in here where like the face is lifeless and you can't see or feel what they might be thinking or going through. Is that purposeful?
I think that just kind of happens with the way that I paint. For most of my paintings, if you're to look through my whole catalog, I like to express a lot of joy. I'm a very optimistic, very, very happy person. I can find joy in most things. I won't say almost everything, but in most things. And so I intentionally tweak and adjust and readjust until I think that the face is expressive enough for whatever it is I'm trying to communicate.
Wait, so you're telling me that there are times where you've painted a painting and you look at it and you feel like the expression is not there, like it's not expressive, and you're able to actually give your painting more expression?
Yes. Since I paint mostly portraits.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm a layman. I didn't even know that was even possible.
Well, if you study the human face, eventually you understand the way the muscles move. And the reason why we can look at someone and tell what they might be or guess how we might feel is because of the direction that the lines in our face form. You know how, some people, when they smile really big, their eyes almost squint?
Yeah.
It's because the muscles are pushing their eye up. It's not really that they're trying to close their eye,
right.
But when they smile, all this lovely flesh in their face pushes their eyelids up. And so, there's a lot that we communicate through our actual expressions, and that we understand more intuitively than we actually understand verbally, unless you happen to study that particular
and then of
science.
course the artist has to pay attention to that. So I feel like, while what you said is true, I'm not sure if I'm convinced that, all artists pay attention to that. You say you find the love and the joy in things a lot, and let me just tell you,
Yes.
I find the love and the joy in this painting. Does this painting have a name?
This one is called Nothing Even Matters.
Does that really even need to be explained? My goodness. What you said you're married?
I am.
Was your husband at all an inspiration? I'm putting you all so on the spot on this. What was your inspiration for this?
I was just actually going through a phase where I just wanted to express romantic love in paintings, but I was trying to find a way to do it without kissing. I discovered that when I created paintings of actual kissing, that it would commonly or most frequently express sex. And I didn't necessarily want to express sex, but I wanted to express connection. And so I was just trying to find different ways of expressing connection without directly referring to sex.
I love everything about this, especially the position their body is in. Was this from a picture, or was this also from your head?
This was influenced by a picture, but a lot of things were changed. I changed a lot of the body angles. This space in the back was completely made up. Everything about the people was just made up. I think it's just more or less just I saw someone holding someone like that, and I ran with it. But everything
look at
is
her
really
face.
different.
Look at the absolute sheer joy. You know what I mean? That is expressed through her face, and that earring just really sticks out in a great way. Was that earring just out of? Where did that come from?
I made up the earring.
Do you own earrings like that?
I have owned peacock earrings, and I was just loving the peacock, and just being an artist and constantly studying shapes around me and the way they're formed. I've studied my earrings, and I was studying how the strands within the individual strands on the feather and how it goes around the shape, and so yeah.
If somebody wanted to come out and purchase art today, they can come out, now until 10 p.m. If somebody wanted to purchase one of these reproductions of an original, is it a little bit less expensive for them?
It's significantly less expensive.
Significantly less expensive. So just know that Rashada came prepared with lots of prints, and this is actually, even though it looks totally original, it's actually a reproduction of one of her originals. So, put it on your wall in your living room. No one will know the difference, I promise you. Let me see here. Well, I can't not grab this. Well, I'm going to grab this first because actually I'll talk about that in a second. So I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. My 3-year-old was nice enough to lose herself in the closet last night for about 15 minutes. We could not locate her. And
That was terrifying.
That was the most terrifying thing ever. And this picture right here actually reminds me of something I saw just this weekend. So my son, he goes to Saturday school, and I often sit with him for a little bit, and half the kids in there are just like, they're not with their parents, and they're just like totally asleep at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. And this kind of is so incredibly true to what I've seen so many times. How did you get... There's a dichotomy of things happening where there's massive vibrancy and color, and yet at the same time it's a child who's like asleep or tired.
Well, this is actually a portrait of one of my former students. Her name is Zoe. The title of this painting is Zoe's Melancholy. And she's a very shy, quiet girl. But this particular day, she seemed a little moodier than usual. She's not super moody. She's, she has her own happy little joy, but she stays to herself. And she was waiting to get picked up after school, and I just asked her if I could take her photo because she was just really into her head, and she was wearing this exact thing, a little turquoise thin jacket, and she had a heavy coat that was pink, and her book bag was purplish. And at that moment, she was just really beautiful to me, so I really wanted to paint her.
And at the moment, was she tired or contemplative?
She was very contemplative. She didn't want to talk about it. I asked her, if she wanted to talk about what was going on. She was really bothered. She said she wasn't bothered, but the school where I was teaching at the time, our school days were very, very long, and so I just imagined that she was just exhausted and was just ready to move on and do something else with the day.
The amount of humanity I think that you're able to capture in your paintings is what impresses me most. This painting speaks to me on a deep, deep level. If anyone has children, or observes children, I mean, you've seen this moment, and you captured it impeccably.
Thank you.
Impeccably. All right, let's do a couple last pieces because there's just... Let me tell you something. I also have a few friends that are... they're actually children's book authors,
Yes.
And let me tell you something. Your paintings are so vibrant, I could easily see you illustrating a children's book.
Well, I'm actually in the process of working on a children's book. It's not my own. I'm illustrating for an independent author right now. And I kind of want to do something with this particular piece. I painted this piece a few years ago, and the funny thing is I now have a new baby brother. And he's about 8 months right now. He's about 8 months old right now, and he's just a funny, happy little guy. And so I was thinking that maybe I would try to do something based off of him and his adventures, being a baby turning into a toddler and just seeing the world through his point of view.
The look on... Is this him? Is this your baby brother?
No, I created this a few years ago, so he's only a few months old right now.
Oh, okay. He was a figment.
Yes.
But the look on his face of pure joy and kind of like mischief. He's got a little bit of a look of like, I'm going to tickle mommy or something like that right now. I'm
just thinking of just ways he could just possibly like... I have ideas. I don't want to give the whole story away because then someone's going to take it. But
that's a fact.
You don't want to share too much.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about running with this particular little boy, so I'm going to try to design other points of view for him and build a story about his going about his day with his mommy, but directly from his point of view, like from a baby's eye view instead of from everybody else's view.
Are there, because I have to read children's books to my kids.
Yeah.
Are there any, when you were growing up, are there any children's books that you remember more than others?
Children's books that I remember more than others. There was this children's book that we had in a library at my school. I think it was called Nisha and Me or Nasha and Me. But there's two little girls. I forgot what they did, but I remember just being really excited to find that book. And they read it on Reading Rainbow once. And I don't know if I was excited for two reasons. One, when I was a child, starting kindergarten was the first time I'd been to a school where not everybody looked like me. And this was the 80s. And at the time, you rarely ever found any type of print or art media that actually showed little black girls or little black boys. And so to find this book in my library about two little black girls kind of living their life and enjoying their weekend,
how old were you?
Really stood out for me. At the time, I was in kindergarten. I was 5.
And you remember that to this day?
I remember that standing out.
Thinking that you were not used to seeing a book with people of color in it at 5?
Yes, a lot.
Wow.
And that's actually a huge reason why I paint so many paintings. Like I have over 200 paintings in my house right now.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I paint so many joyful paintings of black people living everyday life is just from the just the lack of seeing
representation.
Yeah, the representation has been very, 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 very limited
Yeah.
in my lifetime, and so it's kind of like making up.
Have you ever heard of a children's book called Snow Day?
I love Snow Day.
So that's kind of where I was leading with
Yeah.
this. That was one of my favorite books growing up. And I have a very mixed family. My wife is, I mean, even now, but also the family, that I grew up with. And seeing a boy of color against all of this, pristine white snow had a really positive impact on me. Especially, I'm, from New York City, and you're growing up and you see lots of different people. But if you're not exposed, you know what I mean, to certain things, you won't understand certain things.
Yeah.
In fact, that leads me to one of my last questions here, which is, and of course I have to hold this up. Jacob, if you want to ready that video, we'll throw to it in a little bit here. How important is it to paint people of color and to make sure that people of color have a representation in fine art?
Well, it's not just the creation of it, but more or less the exposure to it. I think is the biggest thing. Is just being able to see people of color and to be able to see. I'm not sure if I was heard on any of this. To be able to see people of color and to be able to see us just doing everyday things and just to live life and just to have our stories told in more ways than just the few that have been approved of. I think that matters a lot. Just the exposure of knowing that you can be a well-rounded person and be into whatever thing that you're into and still qualify as being black. I grew up in a community that was extremely diverse, but this was still the 80s, and so a lot of things that we were exposed to, a lot of things that we were taught were taught from a very Eurocentric white supremacist point of view. And you grew up kind of used to it, and no one if my community was racist, I wouldn't have known it. My family, we grew up not really talking about race. Our family is actually very, very, very mixed up, and we love all of our family members, and we don't want to make anyone feel ostracized just because they happen to look differently. And so we didn't talk about it. And so you kind of grow up knowing and thinking and getting this idea that, that everyone has just accepted that white people are the standard and that they're better than everybody. And it wasn't up until, I want to say 2012, when I really started understanding that, I started becoming aware that that was an idea that I didn't necessarily, take on for myself, but I kind of just had accepted that everyone felt that way. And so in my painting and in my wanting to expose my students, I teach. I'm not sure if I mentioned that.
Where do you teach at again?
I teach at Washington International School, and the student population at that school is extremely diverse from all over the planet.
Yeah.
And the concept of diversity is very, very different from a world point of view versus an American point of view. But just letting the students have exposure and knowing that we have different stories, and whatever general thing you think about a population of people is not true for everyone in that population.
Yeah. And let me tell you, we're holding up the painting that Rashad has done of Dick Gregory, who, rest in peace, had been with us many times here in the studio. And let me tell you, influenced us in many ways, politically, socio-economically. I mean, he had lots of insights on things that were only just beginning to be discussed. Remember, as a speechwriter for Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Okay. And also the first black comedian on any late show ever.
Yes.
In the history of mankind. Dick Gregory did a lot of things no one's ever done before.
Yes.
He was maybe one of the bravest people, I've ever met. And he talked ad nauseum about white supremacy and how almost like unaware, we are that white people and black people alike, that we're living in this system that is designed this way, that we must not only recognize but then actively do things right to get up out of. What type of influence did Dick, his words or his life have on you?
Honestly, it's just overwhelming to be in his presence and just to sit and to listen to what he had to say, and just to I grew up kind of oblivious to a lot of things when it came to issues of race and inequality, just because of the community that I grew up in, and to just listen, and just to listen to him talk, and had me think deeply about the different things and the way we're exposed to different things in the media, and what is what the overarching media chooses to expose the masses to, and how not to just always believe the first thing
accept what you're given.
You're given. Yes, you have to go through, and you have to explore, and you have to think about why was this shared, and what are they, not just knowing why this particular thing was shared, but what is not being shared, and why that thing is not being shared.
Yeah. Well, we were talking off camera before the show about making sure that we get this in front of Ayanna, and Ayanna's also a friend of the studio, so I'm sure we'll be happy to make that happen. I'll tell you something. One of the great parts about Rashada and her painting is the humanity that she has captured in all of her pieces. Even as I'm looking at our monitor screen, look at that warmth and that that feeling of happiness you see in Dick's face. It's hard to see when I'm up close here, but when I look at him from afar, if you knew Dick Gregory, you would say that this is an absolutely perfect representation of not just how he looks, but how he was as a person. This gives me the feel of him, the man. I've never seen anyone be able to do that before. Your paintings really transcend just art. Is there... if people would like you to commission, you do live painting, how can people contact you?
Well, the easiest thing for me to share would be my Instagram. It's RESHADA PJ, Rashada PJ on Instagram. And my website is rashadapullenjira.com. That's RESHADAPULLENJIREH.com.
So can you do something like this live? Like if somebody had a party and they wanted to invite a fine artist like yourself to show up and paint live on the spot as entertainment, can you do that type of thing?
I can do that as long as the event is at least 2 hours long.
Right.
Is at least 2 hours long. Don't ask me to show up.
Right.
And
15 minutes later, you'll get a postcard.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes. I've had people try to get me to come and create an entire painting during their one poem that they're reciting at open mic. It's like, that's not going to happen. That's not how it works.
Unless the poem was 37 pages long.
Yes. I know they've seen things happen in movies. I'm like, that's a movie. Thing was already drawn before they started the poem in the movie. But no, during a live event, depending upon my mood, I could get things done very, very quickly. Most of these paintings were created at live events. So
I really happen to think, and this is where I go on my little tirade now, I really happen to think that that's the next big thing, right? So like retail's dead, Amazon's put everyone, mom and pop's out of business. Mm-hmm. I think events and experiences are the next big thing. And so whether, you can do a pop-up or, you're having an event that you want a painter at, I think those are really valuable experiences for people, because let's say there was a young child that stepped next to you as you were painting this live. That type of experience in watching an adult paint something as incredible as this, that could have a lasting effect on kids, a positive lasting effect on kids. Do you have any shout-outs you'd like to give?
I would like to shout out my husband, Teach, who's busy working. He's usually with me everywhere I go.
Shout out, hubby.
He's overwhelmingly supportive, and I absolutely love it. Without him, there's so much that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own, and
That's so
I appreciate it. I would like to shout out my friend on Instagram, who I wish I knew her real name, but you know her name.
Me?
Yes.
Elva?
Elva, yes.
Elva Lobos. Yes, thank you, Elva, for sending Rashada our way. You have been fantastic. We appreciate that.
I'd like to shout out God for giving me this gift, and for just putting me in wonderful places to be able to teach and to share my craft, and just giving me the wisdom that's necessary to be able to do what I'm doing and to grow what I'm doing. And my friend E-Baby, he does the Fourth Thursday open mic at Bus Boys and Poets in Hyattsville, and I'm there with him every fourth Thursday.
You're there with him doing what?
Oh, I'm painting live every fourth Thursday at Busboys and Poets in Hyattsville. So I happily do that.
And then you were harmonizing a bunch. Do you make music at all?
I'm harmonizing.
When we were off camera, you were singing. I'm pulling your card right now.
I do that. Okay, so I don't actively sing on stage. Like, I'm not the first person to sign the list at an open mic. If the list is thin and I happen to be at somewhere, then I'll sign it up. But I love to sing. In fact, before I decided that I wanted to be a painter when I was 17, all the way up to then, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a singer. But that changed. We won't get into that.
Well, creatives are creative, though, right?
Yes.
Does your creativity reach any other realms? Painting, singing? Are you also a clog dancer?
No, but at an open mic that we used to have in DC called Wednesday Versus, we had a live band, and I was up front, and the music is so loud that I would sing and dance while I was painting, and it was just the best thing ever.
Sing and dance while
I'd
painting?
Be singing and dancing while I paint.
Girl, you don't know what you're signing up for.
It's not like I'm, putting on a show with my singing and dancing. I'm more or less just being myself painting.
Oh, Bob Ross is rolling over in his grave right now. I think that's actually a genius idea. Shake your booty while you paint.
Yes, but see, that wasn't the intention. It's just the music's really good, and you want to engage with the music.
Oh, it's just you engaging.
So
gotcha.
It's just me engaging with the music.
Yes,
gotcha. It's not like, hey, everybody, look at
my butt.
No, that is not the intention. Look at the painting. I just happen to be enjoying living, being alive
right.
while I'm painting.
Well, that's almost like a feat. The fact that you can move around and paint is kind of like a skill that most don't have. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. I wish we had more time, because just looking around here, her work is absolutely incredible, and I really want to implore you all to get down here. Okay, we're right at the entrance to Howard University. We'll be doing this all day, every single Monday, 12 noon until 10 p.m. Rashada has tons of prints and originals and reproductions of originals, so please come out and buy some art. Okay, but one of the things that we have that I think is special is that we are now going to throw from an original Dick Gregory painting of yours to the highlight reel of Dick Gregory interviewing here at WLVS.
All right.
Sounds good? Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Cool beans. Well, Dick, we miss you, brother. Rest in peace. We love you always, and we thank you for all of your wisdom and your words. Here's a few clips of Dick Gregory from WLVS Radio.
Not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out.
You can have $20 billion in the bank and 5 PhDs and run 30 companies, and you drive down the street and you hear that police car and you have no control over you squeezing the steering wheel. Huh? A white boy who can't read or write on his way to rob a bank, he don't even hear it. And yet we think you can't do that. If you accept injustice, you become unjust. You live in filth, you become filthy.
War theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia.
Everything they ever wanted. Here's what's happening now, what they feeling for Obama.
Okay.
When they dirt poor, ain't got nothing, can't read, can't write, and they can go to bed and they say, at least I ain't no nigger. They can't say that now. Okay?
Pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run, or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on the
Now listen to this. Paganism is the same thing as Catholicism. They just took it and want to dirty, and they make you think that that word is dirty, Catholicism. So paganism is where they got all their stuff from. All their stuff, they got it.
Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion.